Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and we have a new season of anime coming upon us, so it's time. I need me some weeb. Right here. Scott and I are going to go over some of the upcoming anime by looking at the first 5 chapters of their respective mangas.
I really enjoy doing this. I end up finding out. Well, I often end up reading stuff I wouldn't have read in the first place, and I end up finding stuff I actually really enjoy. But other times, I just find stuff that's absolutely insane that I enjoy just because it's insane, even though I don't plan on watching the anime. But there's always some good fun to be had. Like just taking a look at the different ones, trying to decide what anime I actually want to like look more into if I already haven't read a whole ton of the manga of whatever it is by that point. But yeah.
Yeah, I was telling you this before we began recording. I'll say it again here for everyone. This season has some serious heavy hitters in terms of like what it's going to do to you while you're watching this. Like we've got some emotionally damaging stories coming up, or stories that are just meant to like melt your brain. Like
Yeah.
this is going to be a crazy season.
Mentally damaging in one way or another. Either it's going to be super psychological and like it's going to mess you up that way, or it's just going to be just that dumb and it's also going to mess you up. But we'll get into that as we get into
Yeah.
specifics.
Oh boy.
Let's start with our returning anime because I feel like a lot of the stuff that's returning, like they're already super popular and they're
Mhm.
it's gonna be a lot more like fun, easygoing stuff to a
Oh
degree.
yeah.
Depends on what you're watching, but like,
Here's the thing. Like these are either going to be the palate cleansers, or these are going to be the ones that like actually crush all of the
right,
new incoming anime. Because yeah, these are the real heavy hitters
right,
in terms of popularity.
just a mix of different insanities. So we'll start with Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayers. I mean, it's always been popular. I was
Yeah, and we
kind of
already went and saw we already went and saw the quote unquote movie for it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be just like a bunch of the episodes put into a movie cut, but like the animation was great. I loved watching it in like a movie theater experience. And I am looking forward to this season because there's a lot of really fun characters in that specific arc. And
Oh
you end up
yes.
finding some really interesting stuff about the world specifically, and the emotional payoff at the end of this arc is so beautiful and sets up like the final parts of Demon Slayer so well, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and I here's the thing is like I went into this particular arc when I was reading the manga really disliking certain characters and like
Oh
really
yeah,
like feeling muddled about certain characters. Oh wow, just what you get right here, and I think like this is also like a great break after the entertainment district, or
mm-hmm.
ultimately the red light district arc, because that one is insane,
Yeah,
heavy, gruesome. This one takes us into a completely different realm of the feels and action for Demon Slayer.
right.
So if you're an anime only and you haven't read the manga, this will be a completely different experience, and I think that that's something that the story really needs to just flesh out the characters, flesh out the world a whole lot better.
Right. Well, and I think it really says something about the author for Demon Slayer when they're able to like pull off all sorts of different like parts of the story so well. So like you get these amazing action scenes, but it's also tied into like the character's progression and like their ability to handle different threats and like their growth as the characters. And this one's definitely going to lean more into that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see like how the animation turns out, which it's ufotable. Like we already know the animation's going to be top notch, but
Yeah.
I just want to see like how they handle this arc specifically.
Oh, I'm so excited. And I'm ready for the shipping wars! Yeah! It's gonna be glorious.
Right. We'll have to do a separate video probably at some point talking about how best we think they ought to handle like the final parts of Demon Slayer, because
Oh
I'm
my
not sure
gosh.
how they're gonna go about this, because there's so many different ways they could, and I don't know if any of the options are the right way to do it. So we'll have to talk about
Here's
that.
what. Yeah, I'll just say. I mean, we can definitely debate this further. I'll just say this right now. I'm ready to strap in for a 3 hour long movie for the final arc. Cut the fluff. 3 hours of high octane. I am ready.
Yeah, but I also feel like we might need a little bit of setup before that so we can jump straight into it. But yeah, a 3 hour movie, I would be down for that.
All right. Well, definitely pumping the brakes in terms of action and plot. We have Tonikaku Kawaii.
Which is
Um,
which we covered this before when it originally came out.
yeah,
It's just cute, it's just precious, it's just easy going.
I've tried. So
Really.
here's the thing. I've tried keeping up with the manga since.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this. I've honestly gotten frustrated. Like
Oh no.
it feels like we're spinning in place. It's fallen into the
Oh.
exact same trap that so many slice of life stories happen. I mean, kind of granted that's the point of a slice of life story is that you just get those small moments of like in the light in the day of a life of a certain character. Here we just have these two characters being in love and it's
Mhm.
cute and precious. But the problem is that when you focus on a specific relationship, said relationship needs to improve. And if the relationship doesn't feel like it's really going anywhere anytime fast or really at all, by any metric, it just gets frustrating. I feel like
Mhm.
I feel like I'm no longer reading a couple that somehow got married. I'm now reading a couple who are still blushing that they hold hands and it feels like they're in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I'm very likely going to pass on the second season.
Right. I I need to jump back in the manga and read more of it just cuz like it's a very good, like we were talking about, it's a very good show to dive into if you're looking for like a palate cleanser. Like if you're reading something heavier, like something darker, psychological, something of that nature, something like Tonikaku Kawaii is really good to jump back into like just to freshen yourself up in that kind of sense, to like kind of get yourself out of like that darkness for a little
Hmm.
bit, just to relax before you can jump right back into the deeps of that. So I
Yeah,
feel
like
like
reading
it's a good option for that at the very least.
yeah, like reading Oshi No Ko. Like
Oh,
after five chapters, I like go read some Tonikaku Kawaii, even if it
yep.
is just fluff. You gotta cleanse yourself.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one later. I feel bad Nate's not here for this next one because he's super into Konosuba, and I love Konosuba, but like he's the one that like full dived into like the light novels and all of that kind of stuff, and we're
Yeah,
starting to see more of the progression in the story. Um, like, and I
so
feel like
true.
we're actually getting closer to the end of that story from what Nate was telling me a while back. Um,
Yeah, I feel like Konosuba's got like 2 seasons and maybe a movie left in it before you reach the end.
right. Oh, but that movie, the Konosuba movie, is so good. It was
But
so good. I love that movie.
I
And like,
I was I was howling with laughter.
yeah.
And the thing is this is that I felt so awkward. I went and saw the movie with a bunch of weebs who had all brought their girlfriends or boyfriends there. And so I was actually more surrounded by a bunch of drunk nerds making out
Oh
to the
no.
movie. And I'm just laughing at the movie, and like I'm getting all of these angry glares from boyfriends and girlfriends. Be like, "Shut up!
They
Can't
picked
you see
the
I'm busy
wrong
here?"
movie. They picked the wrong movie for that stuff. Holy crap. Nate and I went with a friend um down to this big theater in Vegas, and almost everybody there were the same kind of weebs that we were. Like, they were there to see the movie, and the energy in that movie theater was top notch. And like,
Oh my
people,
god.
it was one of the few movie experiences where I didn't mind when somebody was like laughing too hard or cracking some sort of joke or like actually having some sort of vocal reaction to the story, because we were all doing it, and it just made the whole experience so much better.
Yeah. And if you're not, I feel like if you're not laughing at Konosuba, either one, you don't get it, or this is not for you.
Correct. Which,
That's the way it
like,
goes.
to be fair, it isn't like, it isn't a sense of humor that everybody can get. But like, if you're really into a bunch of lovable assholes, like just goofing off on
Idiots.
screen, and yeah, a bunch of idiots, um, dealing with a whole bunch of different stuff, like in a fantasy world, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect if you're into that kind of stuff. If you don't get that kind of humor, then maybe it's not for you. Maybe you need to look into something else.
Yeah. Then we've got Dr. Stone coming up. I need to catch up with Dr. Stone. The thing is I actually really do enjoy Dr. Stone. It's just that there's always been something else where I'm all like, who am I ready? Like, I feel like Dr. Stone, I appreciated watching a whole lot more when I watched the first season because I binged most of the first season. I waited until so many episodes came out and then I watched all in one go. And I was like, I feel smarter, I feel entertained, yay. And and when I then tried watching it from episode to episode, I didn't quite get that feeling. It was still entertaining, but I feel like that's one of the reasons why I fell behind on Dr. Stone because I was like, okay, I'm going to wait until more of it comes out. But there's so much anime that I just kept putting it off.
Right. Right. Which is absolutely fair. That is absolutely fair.
Yep. Then I'm so happy we're getting another season of the Ancient Magus' Bride.
Right?
Oh my gosh, I love this story
It's
so
such
much.
a good story. It really is. Like, it's just so well done, and it handles itself so much differently than a lot of the other fantasy stuff out nowadays. I think partly because it's shoujo, but like partly because it's not
dark
isekai.
shoujo.
Yeah, exactly.
Dark shoujo, and that's because the mangaka, to her credit, did I'll say, like, it's not 100% correct Western European fantasy lore, like the different folk tales. It's not 100% correct stuff. But she did her research to really find out, like, why the fae creatures of Western Europe are terrifying and yet mesmerizing and beautiful all at once, and that is in there. And she is not afraid to go dark with that story, and then show, but at the same time, just how beautiful and wonderful this fae realm is. And that's one of the things I think really makes the Ancient Magus Bride stick out,
Right.
In comparison to so many other stories that have a similar premise.
Yeah. I also find it interesting that the Ancient Magus Bride, it's one of those studios that is like dedicated just to one anime. Like a bunch of these other studios, they've got a whole ton of other anime that they're working on. But Studio Kafka, like, the only thing they've done is for Ancient Magus Bride.
Really?
Yeah.
How they have done more? Wow.
Like, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, the only thing they've done is Ancient Magus Bride, but like, you can tell that they're putting everything into that show. It's such a beautiful, like, beautiful animation, beautiful artwork. It's a beautiful, like, piece of art. Really.
My niece recently got into the anime, and it was one that actually surprised me that she liked, because I thought that, like, a lot of she is not the kind of person who would necessarily go for the love story that's presented there, and it totally won her over.
Oh, nice.
And so, like, that really surprised me, and so I think that that's really something to say for the Ancient Magus Bride, is that has a story that if at first you think you're not going to like it, if you give it a try, end up really really enjoying it.
Right.
And
Uh,
we're going to the university in this season. Holy cow. We've got some crazy stuff coming up.
right. And then
So I'm
from here on, there are other returning like anime this season. These are just some of the few that I wanted to kind of touch base on, if anything, because there's just a lot of anime coming out this season. There's a lot of new stuff. There's a lot of returning stuff. We can't spend hours here just talking and talking and talking. We want to keep this like entertaining, but
and
we don't.
manageable.
Yeah, but manageable, exactly. So for new anime, we picked out 11 different anime that are coming out, which there's a broad range of different like genres and art styles and everything in this season. But there, like we were saying before, there's a lot of like there's a lot of horror, there's a lot of like psychological drama, there's a lot of like dark romance, there's gore, there's a bunch of different stuff like thrown into this that you just don't expect sometimes.
I feel like it's because the more lighthearted, action-packed, and more romance-heavy shonen have already either been gobbled up or they're still too fresh that there's not enough material to work with.
True.
So now companies are turning their eyes towards the seinen stuff and seeing what they can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Which one should we start with then?
Uh, you know what? Let's start with the one that's at the top of the list and then see how
Very
we feel
top of
from
the
there.
list. I feel like, I mean, partially just because of the studio, but I think this will be a really good one with Studio Mappa, and it's called Hell's Paradise. And it's one I've seen the manga for, like, for a while when I was working at Barnes & Noble. And could tell from, like, when people were, like, picking up and looking at it and purchasing it. It's a pretty popular manga. But this one's intense. It's called Hell's Paradise.
Yeah. So my immediate note right here is excellent action, horror, and wry humor. People will come for the nudity. Which is the wrong thing to come here for because, especially if
Yeah.
you're reading manga, you're like, oh, look, we have this sexy samurai executioner lady who is naked. Question is, why is she naked? And it's actually because like she's going like it's not that she's walking around for everyone to see her in her birthday suit, but it's that she's going through a whole lot, and she imagines herself being basically assaulted by the souls of everyone she's murdered. And like once you realize that that's what you're seeing right there, you know that you're in for a very heavy introspective story. And I really like that you get that, but that it's balanced with that action, that horror, and an excellent sense of wry humor from the main character, who is just like, I'm empty. Like, I have no emotions, I have no feelings. And, except for one, which is, I really love my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really odd balance to strike, but the manga does it. So I'm hoping that communicates on over to the anime.
Right. And you look at the manga, there's only like 127 chapters on it. So I could definitely see this getting done in possibly like 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And like which I think is fantastic. It's not going to be one of those that's going to like keep dragging you on. Though I feel like anime could use another like newer entity that does that other than like something
Other
other
than One Piece.
than something other than One Piece that like has that staying action, because a lot of the ones that did start a while back are either ended or like they've changed themselves into something else, and it'd be nice to see something new with longer staying power. And I feel like
Hear me out with this. Hear me out with this. Zerk. actually give Berserk the adaptation, the 2D, not the 3D, the 2D adaptation it has always deserved, and start at the beginning of the manga.
Right.
Don't start with don't redo the Golden Age arc again as your opening. Begin with the Black Swordsman arc and play through the entire story in its proper order as it is in the manga. You will have plenty of time.
Right. I think we're getting distracted from what we're supposed to be talking about here, but I do
Yeah.
appreciate your enthusiasm of it. Though I do feel like there are some parallels here, like in Hell's Paradise, and from what I've seen of Berserk anyway, because like there's a lot of horror, there's a lot of like gore and violence, and it starts off really quickly with that stuff, but there's a lot of like supernatural horror that gets introduced here pretty soon, even just in the first 5 chapters that I read, because you've got all these like criminals with like almost supernatural abilities. They're just really good at what they do, but they're all criminals in some form or another, and they're getting sent to this island to search for like an elixir of immortality, basically. But there's monsters, there's bugs that want to kill them, there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on in this island, and it's up to them to survive and try to get through it in order to earn their place. And I feel like it was kind of an interesting way to talk about that kind of stuff, because like historically there are a lot of different cultures that have done similar stuff to that, like, and Japan's one of them. Japan is actually one of them. They're one of the islands, the island of Shikoku. It's one most people don't talk about all that often. Super beautiful part of the country, but a lot of people don't talk about Shikoku, and part of the reason is it was treated almost like, excuse me, it was treated almost like England treated Australia. Like, they'd send criminals there, they'd send anybody had some sort of mental illness or like deformity. They were sent straight to Shikoku. And
I did not know this.
yeah, and it's like an interesting little part of like Japanese history that nobody really talks about unless you're actually living like on or near that island, and then you learn more about like the details behind that. Even now, because they were sending so many people with like mental illnesses and whatnot, the genetic portion of that is super high in that part of the country of Japan. But like Japan's not the only country to do it. England did it. I'm sure there's plenty of other countries who did stuff like that. But like sending criminals to some sort of island to banish them for whatever reason, like, yeah, why not dip into history for inspiration for your story?
Yeah. I mean, like, the American West is basically that. The American West is like, oh, gunslingers. Why are they gunslingers? Because of all the criminals and runaway Confederates who fled to the West.
Yeah.
So, like, each country's got it. Oh, not each country, but many countries have have a history kind of like that. And definitely like the premise for the story, and the characters are interesting. And what shocked me is what the characters are already doing by chapter 3.
Yeah.
I was just like, holy cow, no, I was not expecting that. And that was great. It was a great subversion of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I hate saying my expectations were subverted, but when it can be done in a way where you're like, that was actually good, I will then say it.
Right. No, exactly. I feel like this one's going to be pretty popular this season, especially for people who have gotten into like Attack on Titan, another thing that Studio Mappa has made, because it has a lot of that similar like action and violence and psychological drama, etc., that like Attack on Titan was known for. So I think this will be a super good one. How about we move on to the next one, which we've mentioned it before already on this episode. This one is all psychological drama, and it is all messed up.
Okay,
all messed up.
so, so something I will say for Oshi no Ko. I don't know about you, Scott, but I came across this one maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more.
I
Um,
I came
and
across it a while back too, but like even though the description of it caught my interest, there was something about it pushing me away because like I've read stuff that's talked about like the idol industry or like show business in Japan and really enjoyed it. But this one felt different. This one felt kind of weird, and so I was kind of staying away from it until
it's a
like
weird.
now.
Yeah, so and I mean, for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, Oshi no Ko follows two reincarnated siblings who are not siblings beforehand, and one of them happens to be the doctor who tried to cover up the fact that there was a very popular idol who had gotten knocked up at 16. He helped to cover up her pregnancy and the fact that she had given birth to children. A very angry fan who finds out that she is no longer pure goes and murders the doctor for having covered up the scandal. And so the doctor's reincarnated then as her child, or as one of her twins, and the children already possess all the knowledge and capabilities of when they were adults, which is a
Which is
little bit
super kind of weird. I was not
real.
expecting that little twist.
That was weird. But the thing is that it made a little bit more sense because when I saw right here when I first came across it, it's like, well, that's interesting, and I clicked on the most available chapter at the time to
Yeah.
like be like, okay, like what, like because it looked stylistically pleasing, but I was like, okay, let's get a feel already for these characters before I commit, and it was immediately just like a gut punch of darkness and tragedy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know what's going on here, but I already know I'm in for a bad time. Having now started from the beginning, going way further on in, it's ultimately a story of revenge.
Yeah.
It's in a very, very weird way. Basically, the story of Oedipus Rex, just
Oh
minus the
no.
sleeping with the mother. That's
Oh
what it
no.
is. Because
It,
he doesn't actually sleep with his mom
right.
because that's various reasons I'm not going to go into for spoilers. So it's like, hey, at least we don't have that. But it is the story of Oedipus Rex.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely fascinating, and I did that same thing like that you do a lot of the times. Read some from the start, and then I'm like, okay, let's see how this like ends. So I read the very final chapter that's been uploaded so far, and it's that same kind of psychological like drama still going, even though you can see the characters have aged up quite a ways. And like, so
Mm.
getting into this, just gonna warn whoever is interested in this, it's gonna be a psychological ride the entire way. And if that's what you're into, you found a great one. If you're not into it, then there's other options.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I'll watch this one, to be all honest. I might. I just don't know
Yeah.
because the manga definitely did things to me psychologically. I was through with it, and I was like, oh,
Right.
I'm not good.
I do, however, like seeing something different come into like the idol anime kind of subgenre because this kind of
Mhm.
fits into idol anime. It's kind of on the borderline, if anything, but it's definitely fits into that kind of subgenre. But it's very different. It's a very different look on what it means to be an idol in Japan, and like if you're interested in idol anime, I would go into this cautiously, but I think it might be a really good way to kind of open your eyes about like the whole like scope of things when it comes to being an idol, because you hear about like actual idols, like the actual idols, so like you're talking about like AKB48 and like other groups that are in Japan at the moment in real life, and they've had their own like scandals and whatnot, kind of similar to stuff that was going on here. And like
Mhm.
real life, it has darkness, it has that kind of stuff. So even if the idols are super flashy and sparkly and seem super happy, there's always stuff under the surface. So it's interesting to see that showcased in this story.
Yeah. Like, I mean, when it comes to like learning a little bit more about the idol industry, I'll just close with saying this is like the idol industry in Japan is what Hollywood drama thinks it is.
Yep. 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 Like there's certainly like you have to be absolutely pure, like in society's eyes, like if you're an idol over there. Otherwise, there has been and will be consequences to those actions, and
just sabotage, the backbiting, the paparazzi is insane.
well, the paparazzis, but the fans, like you have to fear the fans. Like if, like you were saying before, if a fan thinks that an idol's purity has been like damaged in some way, they will take it out in the idols. And there have been, like in real life, there have been idols who have been killed because their like reputation was tarnished in some way, and a fan couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's some like real life, like there's definitely a bit of a fantasy element to the actual story, but there's a lot of real life stuff that's being pulled into it as well. So just go into that with that kind of mindset. All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's move
a cleanser.
On to
a cleanser.
Cleanser. Yeah, one of the few on this list. And I love the note that you put on our document, Lars. The Harry Potter we need, but not the one we deserve. And the title for this one is called Mashle, and it's by A1, the studio A1.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. As you have just, it's like it's like if Hagrid showed up and was like, "You're a wizard, Harry." It's like, "Harry, here's some steroids."
Oh, is that what's in the cream puffs that the character's always eating? That explains so much.
That's just roids. He's just eating he's just stuffing his face with cream puffs and really just roiding out and
right.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So very, very basic premise, and it's actually kind of messed up when you like stop to think about it, which is I think why the series does not stop to think about it, even though it is brought up actually really early on. So we'll see how the anime handles all of this, but effectively you have a wizarding world in which the characters who would be muggles or what's the other term? The ones who are born from wizarding families but actually aren't squibs. All of the squibs and muggles are basically executed. Yeah. So that way the purity of the magical line can be preserved.
Eugenics, of course. Magical eugenics.
Yeah. Oh, it's so bad. And Mash's adopted father is just a sweet guy. I absolutely love him. And he's been trying to prevent the authorities from finding out that his adopted son doesn't have magic. And when the authorities finally find out that there's a kid running around who doesn't have magic, they come to kill him. But he's so beefed up that he can just like One Punch Man slap spells out of the way. And he just owns all of these wizards.
To put it into D&D terms, it's like 20 level barbarian dropped into a bunch of level 5 wizards, and like the wizards have no idea what they're up against.
No, not at all. And actually, I will say this: I love because like that's a really great way of putting it. I think it's already by chapter 5. I think. Or Mash ends up going up against a wizard who is level 10 rather than level 5.
Right.
And it's actually a pretty good match.
Yeah.
Between the two of them. And so I like that Mash isn't just simply slapping his way through everything as though it's absolutely nothing. That there is someone there who can somewhat counter him. And that means that there actually are dangers that Mash can't just simply punch his way out of. And there's another instance as well, which I won't spoil, that you get early on in the manga that kind of shows that Mash is OP. He's OP in comparison to most people. There are some wizards who could take him on, which is why then it's so necessary that Mash goes on this journey of self-discovery and of trying to create a world where squibs and muggles aren't going to be murdered.
I loved a lot of time because sorry, it very much played itself more into the comedy element, like action comedy kind of stuff, like almost entirely. But every now and then you get this little tiny meta moment, kind of where either the main character realizes it or like you as the reader are able to realize it, some of like the deeper stuff that's going on in the story. So it's not just like the stupid comedy of, oh, muscle beat magic. It's there's some like dark messed up stuff. Like this is definitely one of the more palate cleansing options in this lineup, but the author
it's not
actually
stupid.
it's not stupid. It has a bunch of stupid jokes, but then it like makes fun of itself at the same time for those stupid jokes, so it handles that comedy very well. And like I was actually really impressed with it when I was reading the manga. I really hope the anime turns out good. A1, they have done some really good stuff in the past, but they also have done some like odd, not as good stuff in the past as well. They're kind of a mixed bag, in my opinion, anyway. So we'll see how well they handle it. This was one
the production value looks just like, this is sad to say, but I think it's also true. The production value looks a notch above Vermilion Gold, and Vermilion Gold was good for what it was, but MASH needs to be just better than that.
Right. I was talking to Lars about this before, but I feel like this one specifically would have been absolutely fantastic if Studio Mappa had been the one that picked it up, because it relies a lot on like that physical action and battle scenes, and we all know Studio Mappa does a fantastic job at those. And if they'd been the one to pick this up, it would have been just like top notch in my regard.
Yeah, I agree.
So that one will definitely be a fun one to look into, in my opinion.
I'm definitely looking forward to watching that.
Right.
One that I probably won't be watching, because even though it's really cute, I've seen it done better in other manga and in other stories, and this is Loving Yamada at level 999.
Yeah. This one's one I actually like, because I've read quite a ways into this. I haven't finished it as of yet, but I have read like good 50-60 chapters of it at the very least. I like the story, and it's kind of more easygoing than a lot of, well, in some cases it's more easygoing. It takes longer to get into like the actual romance elements compared to like Otakoi or Recovery of an MMO Junkie, which like those ones are fantastic, but they're very much short form like romance stories, and this one takes a longer approach. You have a bunch more characters that have to be introduced into the story before it really starts flowing. So like right at the start, it's kind of rough, in my opinion.
It definitely does have a rough start. Oh, what was the one anime which was about the otaku characters who meet through online gaming? I know that's super vague, but it was a really cute one. It was the one about the lady who quit her job so she could just game.
Oh, that was Recovery of an MMO Junkie. That was the one.
Yeah, recovery. Like, here's the thing: is that maybe this is just me, but I feel like I Recovery of an MMO Junkie did this somewhat better. It's not the exact same story, but just the idea of characters discovering and messing up their love lives in online gaming.
Right.
And what I will give this one though is that I like the idea of a girl who's like, oh, I want to get closer to my boyfriend. He does online gaming. I'll do online gaming. Then she gets dumped because he meets another girl online, and it's not like she's like, well, now I'm just screwed. But like, she actually has a life now in the game. She enjoyed it, and I do like that aspect.
Yeah.
I thought that was a neat that was a neat little addition.
Right. I do, however, I find it a little weird how willing like Japanese authors are to like ignore an age gap. But I mean, and I guess it's a bigger thing over in the here in the States, I guess. But like she's in college, or at least college age. He's still in high school. And
What? I did
yeah,
not catch that. I did
yeah.
not catch that in the reading.
It's something that comes out a little bit
Oh.
later. He's still in high school. He's about to graduate, from what you hear. But like, there is that kind of weird age gap, which like it never goes, like it never breaks the barrier. But like, it's kind of weird how like the cultural differences make like what that one is more okay in Japan than it would be here. Like it's just a concern. Just a concern for me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to just to state a little fact because I completely forgot to mention it. But for Oshi No Ko, it's the same author that did Kaguya-sama Love is War. So just take that into mind, like when you make your decision.
So crazy to think there's such different stories. I mean,
I
great. I love that. I love when an author can do that. When they can embrace two completely different stories, two completely different genres. I think that is amazing. That's what I strive to do as an author. But wow, they're so different from each other.
Right. All right, let's move on to another kind of romance, more slice of life. Has some deeper stuff in it. The Insomniacs After School. This one I found interesting because, like from the start, I wasn't a big fan of the art style, but every now and then there's just like this charisma that shines through, and it's just super. Like I fall in love with the art style, like all of a sudden, and then it goes back to what I was doing before, and I'm like, yeah, don't like this as much, but like every now and then it has this like sparkle that shines through, this like charisma that just comes out. And I think partially it has to do with like the characters and like their interactions like that make that the case, in my opinion.
There is something nostalgic about Insomniacs After School for me. I will say this: there is something I would say it's in the layout for the manga. It's at times felt like I was reading a splash panel rather than like a comic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But oh my gosh, I got pulled into this. There is, because I've read ahead for this one. It pulled me in so much that I just kept on going. So there are things that I am not going to say because if I even begin to make likenesses, it's instant spoilers for anyone who doesn't know this story. So I'm not going to do that because I think that would take away from this. This right here, this takes high school romance back to a more innocent time.
Yeah.
The mid 90s, and it pulls it off so well.
Right.
It just that's why I say it feels nostalgic. Like I felt like I was reading and watching an older teenage rom-com that was spiced perfectly with, I think, something very relatable to people, which is insomnia.
Yeah.
The different ways in which insomnia manifests itself. And that was great.
Right. And it's very much more than a lot of other like anime and manga. It's a lot more down to earth. It's doesn't have this like fantasy element or anything in it trying to spice it up. It's literally just relying on like the characters and their environment and how like their interactions, and it makes a very like genuine, very genuine story. Sorry, that came out wrong. A very genuine, like very very fun story. It's a very cute story in my mind. Like I really enjoyed reading this, and I'm excited to see how this does in anime form.
Same here. I feel like I'm sad. Like I already feel kind of sad for this because I feel like this is going to be one that people will sleep on. Like if you're looking for a story that I think you're just going to get immersed in, and not like in an overhyped way or an overly emotional way, but in a way that just feels good. There's something cathartic about this. Insomniacs After School, I think, is going to be an anime like that.
Right. And I'm glad Leiden Films is the one doing this, because while they're not known to have the flashiest like art style, a lot of their stuff, like, they've handled like romance stuff before, like, pretty well, in my opinion. I mean, they've got a bunch of different stuff, but I feel like
Hmm.
they're gonna be able to handle this. Like, one of the more recent ones they did Tokyo Revengers, which has a really
Oh,
good art style. They did Call of the Night, which is a more recent one. That one has a really good art style. Um,
wow! This is like the opposite. This is like on the other side of the coin to Call of the Night. It's a
yeah,
similar premise, but like there's nothing supernatural. This is all just real people.
right. Yep. But like they've done stuff like other stuff. They did Goblin Slayers. They did like Cells at Work. Like, they've done a bunch of different stuff. So I'm looking forward to see how they handle this one. And then let's
They'll
move
do
on
well.
to the next one. I know Lars is super excited about
Oh,
this
I'm
one.
so
And
excited for this one.
I feel like this one kind of fits up there like with Komi-san and like other rom-coms that have been out recently. I first found out about this one a long while back. I think it was like 2020. There's this list they come out with in Japan every year that's like the top 10 manga that Japanese readers want to see made into an anime. And this one, Komi-san, and I think there were a couple others on this list that like I really enjoy. But this is one of the ones that was on that list, and
Hmm.
I'm really excited to see this one like animated. And I know
And
Lars is.
yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. But here's one thing I am going to push back against because I'm going to push back against the whole thing of like this is going to be like Komi-san because in a way I do agree. The opening for it, like especially in the manga, if they adapt it like it is in the manga, first episode or two, I think is really going to like rattle people who are like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Komi-san, and they're going to go and they're like, you mean to tell me that the guy I'm supposed to root for, the guy who's going to fall in love with the girl,
Yep.
the murderer? And it's like,
Yep.
no, he's not. He's he is he's something else. And like it was embarrassing for me to read this manga at first because I looked at him and he's one of the and like this is true. There are very very few characters in fiction I've come across I have actually seen myself in. So whenever anyone's like, you need to see yourself in fiction, screw that. There's almost no character in fiction who's like me.
Until now.
Chikawa? Oh my gosh, it was like looking in a mirror at myself back in like my sophomore and junior year of high school. I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh, I was like that, you poor child. And
The
so I
amount of
loved,
cringe.
oh, so much cringe. And I love that we get a redemption story for this character,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just because he falls in love.
Right.
And so there's so much going on in this story, The Dangers in My Heart. It is ultimately a beautiful story. I think and one thing I really hope that they nail is how Yamada is always flirting with him
Yeah.
in the most hilarious, awkward ways possible.
Yeah.
I feel like if she were to exist, most Japanese boys would be like running in the opposite direction. Like, nope. I don't care if she's got big boobs. I'm out of this.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Uh, yeah. There's my gushing take on the dangers in my
Right.
heart.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to see this one. This one's going to be super fun. And I think it's going to be one of the more popular ones this season for sure. Like, if you can get past the first few episodes, I think it's going to be, like, just top notch,
Mhm.
in my opinion. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one, so, like, earlier I was talking about, like, the different reactions, like, the different kind of damage these shows are going to do to you. This one's
Yeah.
gonna be more along the lines of like, what the hell did I just watch? Kind of damage.
Yes.
I feel like I feel like the artwork is fantastic. I love the artwork for it. The artist who, like, the author of this, they did this really cute manga, and they did turn it into an anime called Lightning and Sweetness and Lightning was the name of it, which was like this kind of super fun show about cooking, and you've got this single dad who's trying to cook for his daughter and ends up getting some help, like, from people in the local community, and it's super cute. This one tries to apply some of that same cuteness, but it's more into like a relationship. But you get into this realm that I've seen in anime before of like the like abnormal girlfriend or like exotic girlfriend, but like it's a forced relationship almost from the start, and it ends up being super
Yes.
kind of awkward to see from the outside. Like everything's set up to make it okay in the storyline, but looking at it as an observer from the outside, like as a reader, it's super awkward. Like it has its genuine moments. It has these like meaningful, like precious moments between a bunch of the characters, but like for the whole story put together, it's kind of weird.
I absolutely agree. My note right here for this was, this is part of a growing trend. I am a lonely, sad mangaka. How can I make my life and profession more awesome? By having an alien girlfriend. Uh, I've
Yep.
recently been coming across these a whole lot more, where it's clear that the mangaka is doing a kind of self-insert in some kind of
Yeah.
way, and is writing what they know, which, hey, you're writing what you know, and self-inserts are not inherently a bad thing.
No.
Sherlock Holmes is probably one of the most famous
Yeah.
self-inserts. It works perfectly because you just love Sherlock Holmes. There's so much to love about the guy. But but this is just one of those moments where it's like, not buying this character. I
Yeah.
don't like this particular mangaka. Like I read it and I was like, not like, I understand that you need to have drafts done, you have to have things colored on in, you have deadlines, you've got all kinds of pressure, and he's taking care of his siblings. Like, that stuff I can actually relate to. I wasn't sold on it. It was just like, this exists so that way we have an excuse to introduce the alien assistant, who will then by
Oh,
chapter
yeah.
2 already become the girlfriend. And I was like, this is so dang forced. And I know I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent right here, but there's another manga, and this one's absolutely ridiculous. It has no story whatsoever. But the dark skinned manga editor, that's the name of the manga, has a better setup than this. And that one's ridiculous. Like, that one's just a ridiculous, oh, manga gets paired off with overly horny assistants. That is, that is the premise for that one, and that one actually makes more sense. That's dumb. Dumb.
Oh no. Oh man, this one. Yeah, I don't know where to start with this one because, I like I was talking before, like it. There's enough entries in that subgenre of like abnormal girlfriend, that it can be called a subgenre, but like in the end, it's still a weird subgenre. Like you go back to the '90s, even well '80s, even you're still finding stuff like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let's see, they did a remake recently of Urusei Yatsura, which, like, that's one of the prime examples, one of like the first
Oh
really
yeah.
popular examples
Yep.
of that subgenre, and it's still really weird. It still feels really kind of contrived to like get the two together, if anything. And
Yeah.
this one tries to be more slice of life about it, and still ends up kind of odd. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe, yeah, and once again, a little tangent right here. Maybe this is why Darling and the Franks ended up being as popular as it was, because it's the abnormal girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, here I've got a girlfriend who's got horns. Oh, she's like part alien, part monster, what have you. It works out well because there's actually a story. There's multiple story reasons for these characters to actually get together and have a somewhat functioning relationship. Feels fulfilling as opposed to this. Like this just felt so contrived.
Right. Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's go on to My Home Hero, which
wow
is a ride. This one is an absolute ride, and it moves quick. I was not expecting how fast the events of this story start moving, because like once you start, like this is one you're gonna want to binge. Like you're not gonna want to watch this episode by episode, because I feel like, kind of similar to Summertime Rendering, it's gonna, like, there's gonna be so many tiny little details like building up into the story that if you're not paying attention and if you're not binging it, like you're gonna miss like some of the payout on this story. It is absolutely insane.
I was surprised how fast this one read. The chapters are long, but I was blazing through them so fast. Holy cow. And here's the thing, I want to know what happened to the dad's career that he's no longer writing mystery books. Because you've got this salesman who ends up becoming a murderer, and he actually is able to like pull off in quotes, because things get really hairy real fast. He's able to pull off murdering a guy because he wrote murder mystery stories, and so he knows how to dispose of bodies.
I feel like, in a way, that's a self-insert kind of moment in and of itself, but like one handled a little bit better than the previous entry.
Yeah, because this is actually interesting right here. The guy is by no means like superhuman, amazing killer. He's a regular dude who just happened to get the jump on a guy who was trying to kill his daughter. So, for the sake of protecting his daughter, which then expands to him trying to protect his whole family, he's going to go on a murder spree against the Yakuza.
And I love how okay his wife is with everything. She's like, okay.
Oh, there's a reason for that. It's so twisted.
Okay, I didn't get that far. I didn't get that far. Uh-oh.
The wife is amazing. She is amazing. But there's a reason why she handles everything as well as she does. And it makes it actually, like, in retrospect, like, even more hilarious and horrifying. Because you're like, oh, no!
Yeah, this one's a fun one. This one's a super fun one.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This is one I think will be better to binge, because I don't know if some people could live with the constant cliffhangers. Weird. Okay, this is going to sound incredibly weird, but I'll say it kind of as a way of this is actually a recommendation for it. My folks are not big into anime. I can convince them sometimes to like sit down and watch certain anime, especially if it's like Studio Ghibli. Weird as this sounds, My Home Hero is something that I know that my mom would sit down and watch it all for if she could binge it. If she has to do cliffhangers, she hates cliffhangers, and she would drop it. So this is one where I'm going to be all like, depending on how it all goes, depending on how it is, this is one where I might be like, hey mom, you like murder mystery stuff. Here, watch this. She's going to watch it, she'll binge the whole thing, and she'll be all like, oh. Okay. And that will be the recommendation, that it did not repulse it. Hey mom.
Now that I've actually met your mom, like I can imagine that now, and like I'm enjoying the like mental image of this.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. Oh, yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one. This one's kind of messed up. I've seen the art style in a number of different places, and like I've never hated any manga like with that art style, but it's never impressed me either. This one's interesting. It's still kind of like in that middle zone for me on it, but like there's some messed up stuff going on. It's very like
really messed up.
Yeah, so it's called Heavenly Delusion. And it's very much apocalypse story. There's monsters, there's like people trying to survive in apocalypse Japan basically. But there's also some like deeper meaning behind stuff. Like when it started, I thought it's like, oh, is this going to be kind of a different version of The Promised Neverland kind of stuff with like how it was introducing the characters in some sort of like hidden school that like they can't escape out of, but like then it cuts to the future and like they're in an apocalypse and I'm like, okay, this took an interesting turn. Where is this going?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Here's the thing. I do like the story. I like the story despite how messed up it gets.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much is because some of the twisted reveals that come later on, and there are some twisted stuff in the story, makes sense. Like this is like Walking Dead at the peak of its storytelling.
Oh yeah.
What this is. So it's like the whole thing of like fight the dead, fear the living. That's kind of what Heavenly Delusion is like. It's like fight the monsters, fight against like what the apocalypse has created, but definitely fear the survivors of the apocalypse because people have just like gone nuts. And you have all of these people. You have weapons, people, and descendants who come from the kids who you see at the beginning. And so their story, while that one's going to be like really something else, it is vital to understanding what is happening to the characters in the future. And their story is an emotional roller coaster ride that I ended up really buying into in the end.
Yeah.
So this one gets a recommendation from me. I would not recommend this for younger watchers at all. No.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting ride, that's for sure. All right, let's move on.
I'll just say I skipped ahead. I was reading. I was all like, this is really good. So I just kept on reading, and there were some things where I was like, oh, that's messed up.
Right? Yeah.
Oh no.
All right, let's move on to Skip to Loafer, which I like this one. I really like how like it has slice of life, it has comedy, but it has all the good elements of those genres. And like you're actually getting to see like genuine characters in this, but I love the main character. Like the main character's like so genuine, and like how she interacts with people like automatically catch on to that. But like they start introducing her, and like she gets to school, like she's late to her first day in school after moving from the super rural area. Like she only had like 5 people in her class, kind of rural area, and then she moves to Tokyo, this huge freaking school, but like she has the best grades, so she gets to do the like introduction speech to the everybody new coming in that year. She almost misses her chance to speak, and because of all the running and crap whatnot, she ends up throwing up on one of her teachers, and this one guy who was helping her earlier like is so intrigued by her character. He's like, I'm just gonna give you my number because you seem like you're awesome. And I'm like, I'm instantly in love with this story. This story is awesome.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. And here's one of the things I will say is that like I'm not exactly sure how it's all going to pan out in the long term with the anime, how they're going to animate everything, but in the manga, like it's clear that Mitsumi is not your most attractive female lead.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And the fact that but like it feels so believable that she has then a good friendship with Sato, the cool guy, then you see how this has a chance to like progress towards becoming a proper romance between them. Now, I've read ahead in this one, and so there's a lot of very realistic teen drama coming your way. There's a lot of playfulness, there's a lot of comedy, there's a lot of heart. There's some real drama coming, and like I feel that the people who get into this who haven't read the manga, they are going to like be snapping at certain characters really viciously. And then you're going to kind of see them from another perspective, and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now. And that's one of the things that you get within the very first 5-6 chapters. It's there showing you that you can't just go off of looks alone.
Right.
You can't go off of looks alone in order to understand these characters. All of these characters are 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional.
Right.
I love the Yaru character, whose name is right now escaping me. She is so freaking precious. But at the same time, you know that there's more of a story there because you're like,
right.
You, in the society that you live in, you don't become this nice. No, just because.
Right.
There's a story there, and that's for every single character, and it's so good.
Yep. Yeah. This one's gonna be super fun. Like, and it's another one of the breath of fresh air ones on this list. Like, it has some really deep, meaningful stuff behind it. It's got some great comedy to it, but kind of like the Insomniacs anime we were talking about earlier. It's very down to earth, very like everyday life kind of drama, and it does set up that drama really well. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That one's one I'm probably actually gonna watch. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch the Insomniacs after school. I might try. But Skip to Loafer I probably am actually gonna watch because it looks fun. It looks like a fun one.
It's going to be fun. I really hope that people give this one a try because it's a manga that really caught me off guard with just like how good and how in depth and just how it's just like it felt like being back in high school, but like in a positive way. So that was really nice.
Yeah. All right, and we only have one more for this season. This one's a ball. Like, this one's an absolute ball. It's called Dead Mount Death Play. And it's probably the only actual isekai I put on this list like this season. And there are other isekai coming out this season. I just wasn't inspired enough to put them like on this list. But this one's a reverse isekai. You've got this all-powerful necromancer who gets killed and then finds himself in the body of this like teenager who was just barely killed in our world. And like shenanigans happen, especially as he gets involved with the Yakuza and like other stuff that's going on in the world around him. And it's like absolutely bizarre. It's another one you have to worry about the nudity in, and it's not like deep meaningful nudity like Hell's Paradise. Is like, no, like this girl's messed up and she's naked just because she wants to be kind of idea.
No, this is one where the LGBTQ community, if they find out that this one exists, are going to be very angry with it.
Oh no!
Since one of the characters is a lesbian and she uses sex to dominate other girls. So
the Yakuza boss, yeah. I just
it's like that. Yeah, that one's going to be a little bit to some people. I enjoyed this. It's something though where I wonder in the long run how it's going to keep up its momentum. Because it comes in blazing. It is really, really engaging. So it's one of those ones where it's like you started out very strong. Can you maintain that momentum?
Right.
As you go deeper on in. That's my biggest concern for a Dead Mount Death Play. It's fun. I like the characters. Can it keep its momentum?
Yeah. It was, like, in some of the commentary that was going on, like, nothing major, like, going on in the events, just some of the things that the main character was making, like, observations on. He was talking about, like, how many similarities between his old world and the current world there are. And he's like, there's something deeper going on here. And I'm like, okay, that might be an interesting element to push further. But they were also talking about like different, I guess, cryptids like that were in that community, like wherever they set the story. So I feel like the story's definitely going to be involved with that as well. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping it keeps
I like
going.
one of the first villains.
Yeah.
I definitely like the action against the first villain. I was very intrigued with that.
Yeah.
He has kind of like a Batman Hush vibe going,
Yeah.
but like in a really neat supernatural twist to him.
Right. And but I do hope it does keep the action flowing, because I don't want it to turn out like the first season of ID Entity, because that one had all this like great setup for it and the action was like fantastic, but then it bogged itself down so badly when it got into that one arc, because it started over analyzing every little thing.
Wait. Are we talking about ID Identity or Inspector?
Oh, Inspector.
Okay, because I was like,
different one.
ID Identity. That one goes high octane. It does slow down kind of in the middle, but man, the last like 4 episodes pack a punch.
Yeah,
Inspector was where we were all like,
I'm sorry about that. Inspector is the one I was talking about. Yeah, that's the one that like bogs itself down, and it has a second season out right now. I still haven't seen it, even though I do want to, just because I'm kind of morbidly curious if it like somehow figures out how to save itself, but I haven't like willed myself enough to do it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be honest. I dropped Inspector because I got the vibe of just like, you mean to tell me that we're gonna have an indecisive protagonist who has the feelings for his aunt, the jolly's off to an ex-girlfriend, and is now being pursued by a girl who's head over heels for him because the plot demands it. I'm not sure if I want to get emotionally involved in a story where that is the driving force behind everything.
There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully well. I'm hoping it turns out well.
Here's a quick question. This is actually jumping back to skip to Loafer, but I saw that I had a little note right here. Do you know what they mean by a hidden bancho?
Oh, okay. So hidden bancho is a thing that you'll see in different like anime and manga for the most part. And like I do have one example which I think is like hilarious manga. It's like one of my all-time favorite manga. But hidden bancho literally just it's just kind of the Japanese word used for like a gang leader. And so like different schools will have like their own little like gangs going on, and so they're kind of treating her as this like, oh, our school's got this secret gang leader that like nobody knows about, and if you accidentally find out about her, like she'll mess you up kind of idea.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that all makes sense because of something she says when she's introducing herself. That makes everyone freak out. And now it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. There's a manga I love. Like it's pretty much just this cute little like shoujo like rom-com manga. But it's called My Dear High School Gang Leader. And you've got this main character who ends up transferring into this like very very like professionally skill-minded school. Like it's teaching you how to be like a chemist at a factory or like work at a factory, like that kind of school. Very middle class, like middle to lower class kind of school, if anything, in Japan. And she ends up transferring into it for various reasons and shows up and finds out that this whole school's like a gang basically, and the gang leader at the time, he's a piece of work. And so like the people in her class are like, oh, we're gonna have you put this like heavy metal plate into your like bag that you're carrying, because just in case something happens, you can use it to smack somebody with. Well, the gang leader shows up, and because she's like, because it's a gang school, like it's kind of violent. There's no other girls in the school. She's the only girl in the school anyway, and like he shows up to like confront her over like the whole thing for whatever reason, and she smacks him with a bag and knocks him out. And the rule is, if you defeat the gang leader, you become the new gang leader. So suddenly she's the new gang leader of the school and trying to figure out what's going on, even though she's just a regular high school girl. It's
awesome.
It's so ridiculous, and things just start snowballing. Suddenly she starts taking over other schools by accident, and like the gang just keeps growing, and she's got like a ninja on her employ. And it's so ridiculous and funny, and it's such a ride. I love that manga.
That's awesome. Okay, so now that makes a little more sense. Get it? I now get the joke.
Yep, exactly.
Just another reason to watch Skip to Loafer.
Yep, just another reason to watch Skip to Loafer. I'm looking forward to that one. All right, that's all we've got. Thank you for watching up to this point, and hopefully in the comments, let us know what anime this season you're excited about. Whether it's on this list or it's not one of the ones on the list, go ahead and tell us, and like tell us why you're interested in like that specific story. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh yeah, we definitely want to hear it, and tell us why you're looking forward to it, because you might just convince us to watch something we didn't plan on watching.
True.
But until our next video, thank you for sticking around and listening to us geek out about all of this manga and anime that we've read and what's coming on up. And if you are a novice author who's here looking for solid writing advice and not just writing recommendations or viewing and reading recommendations, then please check out our other videos here on our channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem. Links for that will all be in the description below. And until the next video, y'all, thank you for joining us in this adventure, and tschüss!